you. Good morning. It's lovely to be in Istanbul, and my name is Julie Roehm, and I am the Senior Vice President of Strategic Relationships and Chief Storyteller for SAP. I know it's an unusual title, but maybe by the end you'll know what it means. My presentation today is on the history and evolution of storytelling, from cave paintings to Pinterest. So this should work. So there we go. So as you can see, we've got some great storytellers back here. And throughout time, they've helped to create nations, develop new markets, and change the world. And this last gentleman we just saw from the previous slide, you may not think of him as a storyteller, but I actually believe that he is one of the world's best storytellers. And I don't mean that he gave a great presentation, he did, but I mean because what he created was something that created a personal bond with those of us who've experienced his brand. It's the reason why today, even when presented with a Samsung phone that might be less expensive and even have more features, that people still, in many cases, choose an iPhone. They do that because likely they've bought into the story, and somehow the story is a reflection on themselves. For me, that's really what a successful storyteller creates. And while these are great people that we saw in the last presentation, none of them created the idea of storytelling, because storytelling is as old as mankind itself. And in fact, the very first notion of a story that we know about was found not too far from here in a cave in France. So this was 17,300 BC. And it's the first and oldest story that we know known to mankind, and it was very simple. It's just a cave painting, a picture of a hunt or a hoped-for hunt. We don't know exactly what they were thinking, but we do know that they were trying to communicate, and they chose painting. If we rush forward in time about 15,000 years, that's how long it took for us to evolve from painting on walls to creating a new form of communication. This is the first ever known transcript. So the Epic of Gilgamesh was created. Some industrious man decided to write something down. Not a lot of people knew what it said, but it was the first attempt, and it brought us on our way to the evolution of storytelling. And, you know, it didn't take too much time, 750 years or so, until we figured out that there was yet another way, another platform we could use to tell stories. In this case, it was Homer's Iliad, and it was a theatrical oration. So now, instead of having to be the one or two people who knew how to read, you could actually go and sit and experience a theater production of communication in a more artistic form. But I think that the most significant, and it's a pretty big statement, the most significant innovation of storytelling was this one. The Gutenberg Press was produced in 1450, so almost 3,000 years later, after the first oration. And I think it was significant because this is the first time where we were actually able to create and produce stories in mass, so that literally the whole planet could actually share in a story, read a story, and love a story. And in this case, the first ever produced book was today's best-selling book in the world still, the Bible. Behind me, and it should play. Gentlemen, will it play back there for us, the video? If it'll play, hopefully. This is the first film ever. I don't know if it's, can you hit play back there? Will it play? No? Thank you. I won't play the whole film for you, although it's thrilling. It's a 12-minute film, and it was the first film ever produced. It was produced in 1903, so imagine it took another almost 500 years to get to this point, and it was only shown in a handful of theaters around the world. But when people saw this film, motion picture, for the first time, they thought they were witnessing magic. Now imagine, you could see that if it took 500 years to go from printing books to actually a motion picture, it would have seemed a lot like magic, because there wouldn't have been anybody in your ancestry that you would have spoken to that would have been able to talk about the invention of the next great story. But in this case, it actually started us on our path. But today, magic is something that is pretty hard for us to accept because we all are so used to innovations, and it's just, magic is just science that's yet to be understood. This, if it plays, hopefully it will play back there, is the world's first ever television ad. And I want you to see it because you're probably thinking, I don't want to spoil it for you, but in 1941, the first television ad ever ran, and it was really quite simple, yet, of course, changed the face of storytelling from that point forward. Shall I pause? You can't deduct from my 14 minutes.
That's not the plan. It's a different format, I guess. Sorry for that.
That's okay. Ah, there you go. Oh. It's not working? Okay. This will change the presentation. Well, if I could hold up my laptop here and share it with you, it wouldn't have the same effect. So the video it's a very short video, and I'm not going to be able to act it out. But it's Bulova, which is a timepiece, which I thought also was very apropos, that a timepiece would be the first ever television ad. Now in 1941, and really the video, all it says is it's got a picture of a map, and it just has the word Bulova on top, and the voiceover simply says, Bulova. It doesn't, there's nothing more to it, it's 5 seconds. But again, it was the first stake in the ground. Now the next one is also a video, and I'm scared to death to hit move. But the next one, we jump forward about 45 years, and I'm going to give you a little explanation before we go to hopefully give a chance for this to work out. The next one I'm caring to show to you because I do think it was significant in the history and the evolution of storytelling and in digital. I realize we're in a digital conversation here, but this history is so important because when we're talking about the digitization of everything, we're just talking about a different way to convey messages. And when we forget where we've been, it's very hard to learn from that past. And I think if you watch this particular video, and again, I'm hesitating to hit the button, we'll just wait in 2 seconds, is that it is very significant in that it was created in 1984, and that's your hint. And it was the first time that the Super Bowl, so the American football Super Bowl, was ever used as a platform to launch a TV commercial. And today, half the world watches the Super Bowl just for the commercials and not for the game. I imagine that's probably true in places in Europe because they don't care about American football. But it was significant in that it was a 60-second production. Ridley Scott produced it. He's had a pretty good career since then, producing many big films. And the message was really important because what it did is it moved us from thinking in an analog world to thinking more digitally. And the message was pretty simple. It was to think different, which is my big lead up to the play. Play. And or move slides. The slide isn't moving. Oh, there we go. Can you? It's not looking good.
I'm sorry, it's not working.
So this isn't working either. Wow. Okay, you're going to probably be a little disappointed from this presentation then. Okay, so have any of you seen the 1984 video? No. Then this would have been great for you. You would really have liked this. I recommend all of you go and you download Apple 1984. All right, this is not going to do it justice either. I'm going to try to explain to you the video of 1984. So you've all heard of George Orwell's book, 1984, right? So the video, this commercial was based on that book. And the idea was it was very black and white, and the audience is they're all shaved heads on purpose, and they're all wearing gray, and they're all sitting like zombies staring at a big screen, much like this. And it's very black and white and dour. And on the big screen is Big Brother from the book. And his giant head, it's like a big floating head on the screen. And he's basically telling them, he's kind of in a militant voice, he's telling them where the world is going to go. And all of a sudden you see coming racing down the center aisle, you see a woman, a very athletic looking woman in like athletic shorts and an athletic tank top, and she's got a big hammer in her hand and she's wielding it. And she makes this large motion and she wheels it up and it smashes the screen. And the screen explodes and you see all the zombies, the people out in the audience going, oh, and it's this music. And then it scrolls a script and it says, in 1984, you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984, the book. Oh, yay. Oh, it's so much better when you can see it and I don't have to act it out, but there's no sound. Are we closer now to sound? Oh, see, but I did a good job, right? Look. See if you think I swing like her. You'll see. But there's no sound? Oh. Oh, see the swinging? That's good. There wasn't a lot of sound anyway. There were sound effects, except for they read the end of it. So, but what's fascinating about that is that it was the introduction.
On January 24th, Apple Computer will introduce Macintosh, and you'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984.
So not only did that run in the Super Bowl, it only ever ran in the Super Bowl. So the only other place it was ever shown again was after 9 years from this point in time, when they created this thing called the Internet in 1993, and they started to put all the world's data on it. You could then see it again, unless you knew Steve and went to his house and saw his archived video. But really important in that, I think that it did change the way that we think, and I think that's why it only took 9 years to go from what took dozens and dozens of years, from a video, a motion picture video, to a television ad, to doing something that will change the face of the world. And it was less than a year later that the very first advertisement was put on the internet. Does anybody know who had this ad, the very first banner ad on the internet? And it's very foretelling, if you agree. Have you ever clicked right here? You will. It was AT&T. And it was only 25 years later that we were given Pinterest. And I hope you noticed the very strong similarities between this, look at each of these images, and the very first one I showed you, that was about 19,000 years ago. We've come full circle, right? We're back to cave paintings. We just do it digitally. Because what happens is now we're inundated, and the thing that cuts through a story is simplicity. Simple sells. The difference with the cave painting is that we can't go around painting enough art in caves to reach 3 billion people, so we use the digital world. And we use text. There's 8 trillion texts sent every year. If you think about that in seconds, 8 trillion years ago, Neanderthals walked the earth. It's a lot. So when you have this much noise, how is it possible to break through? I think the answer is simple. So this was a worldwide study, and you saw a lot of brands that have emerged in the US, but I think the premise is the same. And if you think that simplicity is just another fad, or because I'm with SAP, it's basically our strategy moving forward, you'd be wrong. Because simplicity has actual monetary value to everybody who employs it. Last year alone, $237 billion of just the top 200 companies saw a loss because of a lack of simplicity. And more importantly than that, 75% of consumers are now likely to recommend a brand if it has a simpler experience. So when you see the advent of Pinterest and all those elements that are communicating, that people want to communicate simply, it translates directly to business and to your bottom line profits. When you think, though, of some of those brands, you saw a lot of them were new and emerging brands. You think, well, that's easy for them to do, right? They're new and emerging. It's easy to start from scratch. But what if you're a big company and you're already complex? How do you get simple? Well, I wanted to show you an example of a brand, a company that's been around for 100 years, has over 23 brands, hundreds more extensions of those brands, and has found a way in this example to actually convey them all without actually ever showing any of them, because they focused on one simple message. And that is that mom is the center of the universe. Okay, how many of you are crying? Come on. It's okay, it's a soap commercial. Soap gets in your eyes, you cry. Okay, so I'd like to share that because they're a very complex brand, and yet when this moment of truth comes along, that's the idea that you would see that touches you emotionally, it sticks with you, and it changes your decision making right at that moment of truth. It has a business impact. So to close, and I'm sure they're very happy over there, my message to you is this: simple isn't easy. But here's 3 key things that I think you can do to help get you on your way, whether you're a startup or whether you're an established brand, is to get back to the basics. A great story is a great story no matter how you tell it, whether it's through pixels, with your voice, or even on the side of a cave. You have to eradicate complexity. You have to find it and kill it. It's there, it's hard to do, but you have to do it if you're going to succeed in the future. And find your true essence. Peel the onion back, find those layers and find what is at your core. The way P&G found that at the essence of everything that they create is mom and what she does for her family and that decision-making power she has. So with that, I ask you, what is your story? And run simple. Thank you very much.